How's it going, guys? And welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to touch on an aspect that I don't think I touch about on this channel enough, and that's team building. Yes, I have the video where I went over building in team tours with Kakrik, but I decided that I wanted to show a little bit more into my own personal process. But just like Kakrik, I'm not going to do it for one of my own games. So the best option that I had was this game. And this game is between Uzi and Joey for BUBL. Now, for those of you who don't know, I have been helping Uzi in the process of prep basically ever since he came back to draft. So, about almost 2 years at this point, which is kind of crazy. The two of us met through Shoutouts. We were both helping him at the time, and we just became really good friends, to the surprise of absolutely nobody, because we're both giant Xenoblade nerds. And from there, we've seen the success that Uzi's had. But if there's one thing that's just about evaded him, it's getting that win over Joey. No matter how many times we've tried, it's either screens cheese, or he just gets a bit unlucky. It happens, we've all been there. And so when this game came around, I knew that the rot had to stop. So therefore, I built most of the team. We then, I built the first draft. And we then just kind of tweaked and molded based on a combination of Uzi's preferences, as well as seeing how mocks were going. And in the end, I think we came together with a team that was the best we could do. Obviously, there is caveats, because the fact that with a game like this, there's always the chance of playoffs, especially when it comes to these two. And you don't want to bring all of your good stuff. And I'll kind of get into that process a little bit more as we dive into the video, and there will be some stuff that I don't say on purpose, obviously because of that potential. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into how we built a team that was best equipped to deal with Joseph. Who even cares what I say in this middle bit? It's just funny because there's a lot of words in it, and today. And so, we look at the matchup here. And the most annoying thing about Joey's draft is his bulk. Specifically, the combination of Petulant and Bellybolt, because it's really difficult for Uzi to break, especially if they both have terrors that allow for them to equip with what they struggle with. The main things being a choiced Palafin in Bellybolt's case, and Darkrai when it comes to Petulant. When you combine that, and both of their abilities to slow pivot, with the offensive threats of Landers, Iron Valiant, and Samurott in this game, and it gets a little bit tricky. Especially when there is options, but you don't want to reveal all of them right now. And so, there was some aspects that looked really good, which I will get into momentarily. But the main thing was going to be able to try to disrupt the bulk and its momentum, stop Petulant being an annoying piece of crap, and also try to halt the offensive progress that could be made by the three aforementioned threats. So let's get into how we did that. So the way I'm going to do this team builder is the way that a certain Mega Mogwai used to do his back in the day. All it was just on Showdown, showing each Mon being added piece by piece, and showing the EV spreads. It was a format that I thought was really nice and very different compared to every other one back in the day, and it's something that I think a lot of people just don't do now. So I'm just decided to show it this way, just to kind of bring that back. Anyways, let's get into the actual mod, shall we? So the first thing that I saw, looking at this matchup, that did what I wanted to do in terms of an offensive disruptor, was Rhyperior. Specifically, a Terra Flying Rhyperior. Because the combination of Earthquake, Ice Punch, Terra Blast Flying, and Mega Horn was really potent in this matchup. This covered Joey's entire team. And I think with this, his only real method of pivoting around it was going into Petulant and clicking Parting Shot. Therefore, I decided to stick an Assault Vest on this because there was no better item for it, and it also allowed for some fun stuff in EVing, covering some of my issues. As for the EV spread, I went for 204 HP, and this was so I was able to take 2 rock slides from a 0 attack life orb Landorus that's not minus attack nature from 75%. So in the event that Theriperia terrored early and then rocks went up from said Landorus, I was still going to be able to take 2 rock slides. This, in conjunction with 96 def, means that this takes 2 life orb Moonblasts from Iron Valiant. Then I put 44 in speed, just to be able to create Belly Bolt, but there was always the flexibility to add more because there's no specific attack benchmark needed. I just stuck the rest in attack and went with an adamant nature for now. This was going to be the focal point for this game. This is how progress gets made, this is how to put Joey on the back foot, and overall, this was probably our best way of forcing progress. How does he halt that progress? Like I said, it's Petrarch. Either by clicking the Terra button, or by pivoting in on non-Earthquake and parting shotting out into potentially Landorus to catch the EQ. So I decided to pair this with Zoroark. A Scarf Zoroark. With Shadow Ball, Hyper Voice, Trick, and U-Turn. Dual Stab is obviously really good here. U-Turn was for Hisuian Samurott, whether that be AV in the mid-game, or some specific lead ideas that I had, which, spoiler alert, did get scrapped, and we'll go into why later. As for the V-Spread, I decided not to speed-tie Landorus. I also decided not to creep speed-tie Landorus, speed-tie Latios, and I also decided not to creep Landorus. The reason being is I didn't think either was going to be able to run Choice Scarf here, due to Zapdos' existence in Landorus' case and Tinkaton's existence for Latios. Therefore, I only crept Petra, and that allowed for Modest. And Modest was a big deal here, giving me that extra damage to cover a lot of Belly Bolt sets unless it's literally max def, and that's huge. As I mentioned, a Samurott, particularly lead Samurott, I wanted something to be able to punish, particularly that ceaseless edge click. So next up is Tinkaton, a Rocky Helmet Tinkaton, with Stealth Rock, Play Rough, Gigaton Hammer, and then we debated about the last move for a while, but after some discussions with Uzi, the last move became SD. And SD was just to kind of force progress, particularly against the Petrarch. There was a few things that were here. It was T-Wave for a bit, it was Encore for a bit, Light Screen was something I think I had in the original build that I sent to Uzi, but we settled on SD. And we have an EV spread here to ensure that A, I'm faster than a Samurott, and B, I lived the adamant combination of Ceaseless Edge into Razor Shell most of the time, meaning that Rocks feels relatively safe to click on turn 2 in the vision that I had. Now, in terms of what I was actually planning to disguise Zoroark as, well, that was Zapdos. And as we know, Zapdos is the second Terra Captain, but I kind of knew that Zapdos wouldn't Terra here with what it kind of needed to do. So this was Terra Ground, just to kind of scare a Belly Bolt, and we went with a Heavy Duty Boots here, and with that we have Discharge, we have Hurricane, we have U-Turn, and we have Roost. Fairly standard Zapdos, nothing too crazy going on whatsoever, but the EV spread's kind of fun, so I might as well go into that. The main crux of it is with 248 HP and 156 speed and a calm nature, this was going to be able to live 2 hits from both Valiant and Life Orb Landorus pretty convincingly. This also lived 2 Latios Draco Meteors from, I believe it was Soldu, so unless he saw Life Orb or knew it was Specs. 56 in here allowed for Zapdos to not get 2-shot unless the Lando was attack invested in Life Orbed. 8 in speed, just in case he tries to do Joey decides any source of creeps with the Petrarch, and the rest in special attack just for some added damage. This first 4 covered a hell of a lot of the issues that we were going to have. As I said, Rhyperior is the progress maker. Zoroark was there just to disrupt the rhythm of the game, and also make him think twice about his Rhyperior pivots. Tinkaton is there as a rocker, as well as a reliable switch into mons like Samurott and Valiant, and Petrun to an extent, even though we don't have knockoff, which is kind of annoying. And Zapdos is our predominant check to the special threats, Landorus being the main one. Then, you're probably wondering about the last 2 mons, and to no surprise, it's the top 2 mons. So I'm going to introduce them both. Darkrai and Palafin. We'll start with Darkrai. As much as I wanted Chople in this game to cover like Vacuum Wave Valiant, I decided on Boots. And that's just because I wasn't 100% sure on how many times Samurott was going to be able to get away with clicking Ceaseless Edge. It depended on its set. I had a different Darkrai in mind initially, and I am going to withhold that information just in case that is kept for playoffs. Please don't kill me, guys. If you see it, I'm sure you'll find out. But what was brought to this game, well, the main thing that we took away from that set was that Dark Pulse plus Sludge Bomb covered everything we wanted. The only thing this didn't hit was Samurott, and with the Helmet Tinkaton, as well as thinking that it's going to be taking a lot of damage very quickly, we decided that it was best to not run Focus Blast. So therefore, we have Nasty Plot, just to be able to boost that damage, because this can kill like everything. And lastly, we have Hypnosis. And Hypnosis covers similar enough to what I said with Zoroark. It is to disrupt the fat. Predominantly, like I said, the Petulant and the Bellibolt, because one of them should have a Terra to deal with Darkrai. Whether that be fighting on Petulant or Dark. I actually think Dark is slightly better. Or you could see the same types on Bellibolt. Although I do think it will be the Petulant, because Bellibolt can check naturally, and it probably wants a Terra typing to be able to deal with Palafin and Rillaboom, in theory. As for the spread here, what we have is 184 Timid. That is enough to deal with Valiant, unless it's booster energy. And we have 192. Well, actually, I think we have a lot more. Yeah, it's 232. This went through a couple iterations. And the reason for this bulk was to be able to maximize the amount of hits we were going to be able to live, a lot of which ended in ensuring that we could live a Valiant Vacuum Wave. So one that came to mind was a Samurott Flip Turn into Valiant Vacuum Wave, as long as it wasn't, I think it wasn't Life Orb. So being able to kind of have those sequences and killing Valiant was going to be a really big thing. So Darkrai was the win con here. It is the best way for us to just kind of sweep in the endgame. As long as Rhyperior does its job in regards to putting him on the back foot, and we maybe net a surprise kill on something we need to, the main one coming to mind being the Petulant, with the Scarf Zoroark, then we're in really good shape. And so you're probably wondering, what's the goal of the Palafin then? And this is another AV one. The reason for that being is that Landorus was still pretty scary. Because as of right now, if it runs any sort of attack investment, it's going to shred through this entire team. Or force a chip on Rhyperior that I kind of don't want it to take. Or be forced to take in specific scenarios. Especially since it can come in very quickly on the Rock turn from Tinkaton. So we have to assault this Palafin here. This was special for a while, and I might as well show what it was. It was Hydro Pump, it was Jet Punch, and then, I can't honestly remember, it was Aura Sphere initially, but that was changed to Close Combat. Like I said, the original way that I prepped this, I just forgot Empoleon existed because Uzi didn't send me Empoleon the screenshot, which is our bad. It wasn't great. What the hell was it? And then lastly, we have Ice Punch because it's the strongest way of dealing with the Latios. As for the EV spread, we have 240 speed F along with 72 HP. This was to ensure that we lived 2 life over earth powers after rocks because this mod's ridiculous. And we have mile 196 to maximize the hydro pump damage against Petrorunt as well as against Belly Bolt. And yeah, this was the original build. The main intention, like I said, was Rhyperior Force Progress, Zoroark catch him off guard, Tinkaton as the early game Samurott response and to get rocks up. AV Palafin was our predominant Lando check, but also could help against Valiant and Latios in a pinch. Darkrai was there as the win con, and Zapdos as a general pivot as well as a bluff, it's Terra typing. So going from there, I gave this build to Uzi, obviously with a couple of changes that we discussed, and then he went into a couple mocks, and I'm just going to show a couple here, and that's solely because I would do the same, of just like go into some mocks and mildly tweak accordingly, and we were constantly back and forth after essentially every single mock. And so, here is, I believe the first mock he did, it might be the second. And as you can see, he brings the top 6, which is kind of what we were expecting. The Empoleon could come, the Whimsicott could come. There was a couple Whimsicott ideas that I thought might come to this game, but maybe they're being held for the time, so I'm not going to say them out loud just in case. Don't want to put the mockers on it, because I want to be prepped for it. Exactly. Anyways, let's hop into this. Actually, I will get rid of that, because that's a good thing to do. Anyways, let's hop into the game finally. As you can see, he's Terra fighting on the Petrorunt and Terra Electric Belly Bolt, which was interesting. So, disguised as Zapdos, we U-turn out and goes into actual Zapdos rather than Tinkaton. I think that was just being uncomfortable with Flip Turn. As we see the Latios comes in, Zapdos U-turns on the future sight. And you can kind of see Uzi's already not sure about the lead idea, and I'm the exact same. He clicks SD on the flip turn, and then gets a Rocks as the Belly Bolt Volt switches out, and goes into Landorus. Tinkaton's going to take a future sight here, which thankfully only does 27, and in comes the Zapdos to catch an Earth Power. Sludge Wave does 40, so we U-turn out. As Uzi goes Rhyperior, which that definitely could have been Palafin to get the transformation off, but I kind of get the apprehension. We see the Terra flying and the Ice Punch, and like I mentioned, here is the Petrorunt pivoting in, just a parting shot out on the EQ. Landorus comes back in, and it would have been nice to have Palafin, but that's not going to quite work out. Clicks Earth Power into the Terra flying Rhyperior, as in comes the Belly Bolt, which reveals to be Boots, taking a Terra Blast flying, and only doing 18. EQ gets the kill though, with the creep working out. Latios comes in, Uzi decides to go into Tinkaton, taking a Luster Purge, and another one is enough to pick it off. In comes the Darkrai, as in comes the Hisuian Samurott. Hypnosis misses, which, you know, it's Hypnosis, you can't really complain too much. Ceaseless Edge comes off, getting up that layer of Spike, as Rhyperior comes in, as the Samurott is sacked off for another Ceaseless Edge. Latios comes in again, as we go hard Darkrai, catching a Draco Meteor, which does 90 thanks to the bulk. Dirt Pulse does pick off the Latios, but in can come the Iron Valiant, which reveals to be booster speed, and this is a problem. See the SD, but Uzi stays in, knowing that SD would end the game, and clicks Sludge Bomb. Petrorunt stays into Terra, but catches a Hypnosis for its troubles. Bad Dreams comes off. Uzi attempts to get a Nasty Pot up on another turn of sleep, and then clicks Sludge Bomb, doing 45. Petrorunt wakes up and kills the Darkrai with Hex. But at this stage of the game, the Zoroark can come in and click Hyper Voice. Clicks Hyper Voice again, picking out the Landorus and winning the game. And while yes, Uzi won this mock, there was clearly some issues. One was in regards to the lead sequence. A, it just didn't work. We don't get enough out of it, and while yes, he still didn't go Tinkaton, I get why, because flip turn the Landorus is so scary when Palafin's not transformed. And so, after that discussion, we decided that the best bet was to change it to a lead Palafin. We also changed it up slightly, just because we were seeing a lot more speed def on investment on Bellybolt and Petrant than we were expecting. So Hydro Pump wasn't quite doing what we wanted it to do. The other change is with Zapdos, and I'm actually just going to show it in another game. And this is, I believe, one of the last mocks I saw, but as you can see, it's the same 6 again. I think you saw this 6 for most of testing, but let's hop into the game. We see a lead Palafin on the Samurott as Tinkaton comes in this time, catching the Ceaseless Edge, doing 18, as this is free rocks as the Landorus comes in. And here this is so much easier because we have the Assault Vest Palafin, as Lando clicks rocks. Bellybolt comes in, and as you can see, we now have flip turn of the set. This was when we decided to make Palafin physical because it just kind of made sense. The Rocky Helmet and the static sucks, but after discussions we realized that it's not actually that big a deal compared to what we initially thought, because he doesn't really need the speed on Palafin, he just needs to have it alive for Jet Punch. And semi-healthy. Hypnosis comes off, doing 13 to the Samurott, with Bad Dreams obviously, getting a nasty plot off on the Managed Return of Sleep. Sludge Bomb doesn't quite do enough to kill because it's an AV Samurott, as Sacred Sword does 68, the bulk's coming in handy. Uzi goes Tinkaton on an expected Aqua Jet, but Ceaseless Edge also works, getting the kill and preventing the spike. We see the Zapdos come in and take rocks damage, so we've gone off the heavy duty boots, and I'll talk about that in a sec. As the Petrant comes in, we see a light screen on the Zapdos as Malignant Chain does 33 and doesn't poison. Get a roost off nicely, Malignant Chain does 12 and also doesn't poison. We get a Discharge doing 23 as the full power comes off. Click Hurricane, Petrant recovers, and this is just what Petrant does, be an annoying piece of shit. We click Roost as the Bellybolt comes in, as light screen comes off on the Discharge, and in comes the Tinkaton, expecting a Toxic here from the Bellybolt, as we just see Slack off instead. Tinkaton clicks SD as we see a Reflect from the Bellybolt, as we see another SD, as Discharge doesn't do enough to kill and also doesn't power. Gigaton Hammer unfortunately only does 21, so he's able to slack that off easily, stalling at the light screen. His player off only does 24. That's insane. With Rocky Helmet doing enough to get the kill on the Discharge. Darkrai comes in, threatening Hypnosis, but Petrant comes in, and as we've seen earlier in the game, we know that this has a Terra for it, but he opts to just click Parting Shot instead. Nice bluff. Bellybolt comes in, we have seen that this does have one last move, which is Toxic, as it catches the Rhyperior coming in. Or not a Rhyperior, because it's a Zoroark, since it took damage. We see the trick on the Terra Dragon from the Bellybolt. Hyper Voice does 53 to Latios, which switches in, as Ice Beam does enough to pick off the Zoroark, revealing to itself be Choice Scarf. Palafin comes in here, as I believe the click is Flip Turn, as it should be, as Petrant comes in. The boots on Darkrai proving nice and handy. Dart Pulse, Colbur gets eaten as a Spadef, but a full power, meaning we get to keep Darkrai alive. Picks off Petrant. Latios comes in, we know this is Choice Scarfed. Uzi just decides to sack off the Palafin here. Or no! It's not quite a sack just yet, as Landorus comes in, taking an Ice Punch, and one of the biggest threats is now dead, which is wonderful. Valiant comes in, clicks Vacuum Wave, and reveals to be Life Orb, as kind of expected. And yeah, this is just a bit raps, because Moonblast gets the kill there. Go into Rhyperior, which we know can live a hit. Moonblast doing 54, not risking the lightning rod. Terrablast does get the kill, but the issue here, of course, is that Scarvaladios can come in and just clean up the game with Ice Beam. So, at this point, the team was pretty much there. We didn't make a crazy amount of changes after this. The main thing was that it was always just going to come down to sequences. And so, through these mocks, we came to this team. I don't know why the Zoroark spike's not showing, that's just weird. But we got to this 6. So, the Rhyperior has stayed the same the entire time. And yeah, the Zoroark was changed from U-turn to Curse. The reason being is that Curse was just slightly more helpful in scenarios where we were effectively sacking Zoroark. A lot of that was kind of Belly Button Petulant related, which is completely fair. The Tinkaton hasn't changed whatsoever since the SD change. The Zapdos is now Covert Cloak with Light Screen over U-turn. This was to help with Life Orb Landers as well as just dealing with Petulant. And the Terra Steel is there as a bluff just to make him think twice about the click of Toxic with either Belly Bolt or with Petulant. The Darkrai, as we said, has stayed the exact same the entire time, and there was a slight change in the Palafin EV spread, and that was just to maximize this Spadef. I think it didn't get 2-shot by like Scarvaladios. Like, this mod's insane. But yeah, so there were these subtle changes made just throughout the process of mocking, and this is the team that Uzi went in with to play Joey. Obviously, I'm not going to spoil the result. This video does come out at the same time as the battle, so I do highly recommend for you to watch that. And if you've come here and somehow managed to find this video from that, then welcome. I hope you guys have enjoyed a little bit of my content. It's definitely something different for what my viewers would do. A lot of the time I would be kind of discussing general topics or reviewing games, but reviewing builds is also something I want to do more, and hopefully I can find more excuses to do so. And if people are interested in this sort of thing, let me know. Obviously, I don't want to do a team building series because that's been done to death by multiple different people. L5 and Zooch are kind of the two that come to mind. So I don't really want to do that. So I kind of want to put my own unique spin on it if I do want to kind of cover team building. Anyways, guys, I hope you all have enjoyed, and I shall catch you in the next one. Peace.